Welcome to A Lunch with Biggie, a podcast about small business and creatives sharing their stories and inspiring you. My guest today started helping create online stores that was everybody's envy. Was an influencer before even knowing he was an influencer and a trend. Then worked on helping those influencers get paid, to then coming up with an idea in the shower and going balls deep in the personal men's personal grooming care world. Please welcome my guest, founder and CEO of Ballsy, Adam Hendel. Adam, what's going on, buddy? How you doing, buddy?
Hey, good to see you. Thanks so much. Appreciate the introduction, my friend.
Thanks, man.
It's really good to see you. I mean, I think I interviewed you, it was probably 6-7 years ago. So
it's funny. I actually went back and looked at that interview, and so it was kind of fun to be able to watch that. And I kind of chuckled because I remember that is very, very well. So I do appreciate you taking the time to have lunch with me today. Obviously, my first go-to question always is, what's your go-to sandwich?
Man, I am so lame when it comes to sandwiches. You're gonna hate this, but I'm just not a sandwich guy.
Okay. So what do you go to? What's your go-to then?
Like if I'm gonna make a sandwich, I guess my favorite, which I don't make very often, is like a meatball sub sandwich.
Okay.
So again, don't make it a lot, but if I've had a sandwich, that's what I'm gonna usually go for.
Out of curiosity, what is your go-to lunch then?
My go-to lunch lately, for some reason, it's been a lot of ramen.
That's
Tapatio, which I just was turned on to, that like the Mexican like hot sauce.
Yeah,
they have their own line of ramen, and it's really good. So
I will be
it's quick, easy. I'm not spending a lot of time at lunch, so it's just nice and easy. Probably not the healthiest, but it tastes great.
Yeah, it sounds good. I'm definitely going to be checking it out. So I alluded to many different businesses. When and obviously I met you, like I said, we met virtually when you had an online magazine called I Am the Trend, where you actually did which was amazing because it's really kind of interesting when I thought about it, when, based on how you evolved, because you literally were unboxing and doing everything that influencers would do, way ahead of its time. And I actually had a chance to talk to you about my brand and had you unbox me, which to me was like a huge honor, because it was like I would watch so many of your videos to hear like what your thoughts were, and then also to kind of like go through the P's of all the different things of the product and everything like that, and then just to be able to kind of have a better understanding of how I can improve my brand. So it's definitely been a very interesting thing to do, and to be able to have a chance now to talk to you about your brand, Ballsy, it's something that I'm really excited about as well. So tell folks a little bit about how you came up with the idea, and then how you decided to start Ballsy, like the men's personal care line, in like December of 2017.
Yeah. It sounds made up, but it was honestly a shower moment idea about shower products. Just, so happens on this one fateful day, I was taking a shower and just so happened to notice how many different products my wife had. And I launched it in 2017, but the idea was really in early 2016. And around that time, there just wasn't a lot of high quality men's personal care brands. Mm-hmm. And the ones that were out there were just kind of lame, in my opinion. So I was actually looking for more high quality brands at that time, but they were just very apothecary looking and just not very fun and engaging. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have, your typical brands that are still around, like Dove and Old Spice, that were like more of your bargain brands or 3-in-1s. So it was kind of those two things that crossed in the shower. And it was like, as guys or as ladies, they really have different products for different areas of their body. And for guys, it's like, here's your 4-in-1 value wash. Yeah. And it's like, well, why hasn't someone created something more specifically for, a men's balls? Yeah. And, the idea and like literally the product name of ball wash, as obvious as it sounds, was kind of thought of in that moment. Jumped out of the shower, Googled it, and no one had ever created a product called ball wash. And it was kind of one of those moments of like, either I'm completely crazy or, there's some white space to be had here. And then that's kind of when I started walking down the road of trying to answer that question.
No, and I love, it's funny because I do come up with a lot of crazy ideas in the shower. So it kind of, when I heard the story about how exactly it happened, I think that was great. And you started out actually with two items, right? And we'll get to that point, but like the two big ones was the ball wash and the nut rub, which I'm very intrigued by that. But like, what's interesting, because I never would have been like, oh, I want to put something on, rub something on my nuts and like, and to make it smell good. I just never, does not really go fathom in my mind. But that's also because of the fact that, like you said, like there's no product out there like that, or anything that was actually there to groom, or for men's personal grooming. For that case, what made me interested, I found really interesting though, was the fact that there was a process for this. So like, you came up with this, obviously you
Yep.
got super excited, but you also then realized that you weren't a chemist. You're more of the marketing brand of it, and that you really couldn't come up with like building this or creating the product, right?
Yeah, exactly. My first thought was, I'm always kind of a, do it yourself person and see if you
Mm-hmm.
can test before you, kind of go out and grow something. So yeah, I kind of scoured YouTube on like how to make different washes and whatnot, and,
Yeah.
blogs. And I went to Whole Foods and bought a bunch of different ingredients and essential oils, and was kind of like mixing my own body washes. And like you said, I definitely quickly realized that's not my forte, although it was, a great learning experience, because I'd never really known, anything about
Yeah.
building a personal care product. So a lot of fun, but that's not where I really wanted to spend my time, and not a place where I thought I could have like market advantage. So yeah, the next step was really to find a partner that could help me make the products that I
Mm-hmm.
had envisioned. And so I just basically started, again, back to good old friend Google, searching around for different product manufacturers that could help do that. And honestly, it was a lot of dead ends, because I literally set aside, $5,000 to start this. I just really, again, shoestring budget to kind of get a product-based business. And, in case you don't know, like most personal care manufacturers want to do 5,000 units, not $5,000.
Yeah.
But after about 6 months or so of just kind of calling around, I connected with this smaller manufacturer at the time that was more family run, and they just absolutely loved the idea. And within like 5 minutes of the call, they're like, we want to help you build this. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm really excited, but it's going to be like 100 units to start.
Yeah.
Like, we don't care. Like, they had seen a lot of ideas. Obviously, a lot of brands approach these manufacturers with their ideas, and they just thought it was cool, and they got excited about it. And I could tell very early on that they were looking at the business as more of a partnership, and not just like a contract manufacturer, which is
Yeah.
really unique. A lot of these guys, it's like, sure, I'll build your product. Do you have money? Okay. So, again, very lucky. I mean, I guess it wasn't my first call. It took a long time to find these guys, so persistence did pay off, but ultimately, found that partner that was excited about the idea. And we spent the next 6 months or so developing, what the formula would be for ball wash. And as you mentioned, nut rub, which is a solid cologne. And then we launched that basically Black Friday of 2017.
So a few things that I was intrigued by this, because one, I love the fact that it's like it's good and bad, obviously, like the frustration of having this amazing idea and then not actually having to actually slow roll, try to find the right opportunity for it. But my biggest thing that I thought of, I put myself in your shoes, and that is, how difficult is it for someone to come up with an idea but then have to rely on someone else to kind of work it? And then it's one of those where, I mean, I'm assuming there was a lot of back and forth where you like flying in to go see these folks in order to kind of do this, because I mean, there's a lot of back and forth on sampling, and is this how I
Yeah.
want it to smell and how I want it to look, and things like that.
So yeah, there is a ton of back and forth and a lot of frustration, because a lot gets lost from like initially what your vision is. It's like, oh, I thought we were on the same page. And then you get
Yeah.
a sample back and it's like, whoa, this isn't even close to what I thought.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's, especially early on in a relationship where you're trying to, figure each other out, like how you all work. But yeah, we went through, geez, I mean, probably close to 100 different iterations of just, you know, a
Wow.
ball wash. There's just so many things that go into it. You know, what type of ingredients, what's the viscosity, what's the fragrance smell like? Very early on, I wanted it to only be essential oils. I wanted it to be 100% natural. But after, you know, I think it was 3 or 4 months, I just could not get to a fragrance that just didn't smell like essential oils, and it wasn't unique. You know, it's like
Yeah.
those products to me all kind of smell similar.
Yep.
So we started being like, all right, what does it look like if we do a fragrance, but everything else is, you know, on the natural spectrum? And that's when we finally found, you know, a fragrance. And then towards the end, you know, the activated charcoal piece of it, that wasn't added until like the last month of like the 6 months.
Really?
Yeah, which ended up being kind of the X factor. But I mean, you know, activated charcoal in products now is kind of, you know, normal.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, 5 years ago now, it really wasn't. I mean, you would see it in like teeth whitening, but not in like body wash. And
Yeah.
the idea of like a black body wash was different, right? And so once I got that sample with the fragrance, and I'm like, oh man, this just feels like different, right? And it's something like the name of the product is different.
Mm-hmm.
So like the experience shouldn't just feel like a normal product, right? So that was kind of like the final light bulb, like, aha, we got something that's different. And that's something that's carried forward into every product we've, you know, created moving forward. It's like, you know, you mentioned the nut rub, which is a cologne, right? Yes, you can definitely, you know, use it on your balls, and that's the way we market it. But it is like a great all over body cologne.
Correct.
But most people have never heard of like a beeswax based cologne. Like the utility is different. It's nice. It's like comes in a tin. You can throw it in your pocket or backpack. It's lightweight. Like it's different, right? So we're always looking for things that can be different about a product. And that might not always be the utility. It might sometimes just be like the naming convention and like the way that we market it. But it's always just looking at like what's kind of been done and how do we make it ballsy? How do we make it different?
Yeah. And so some of the things, you know, I truly am amazed by like how the story and how all this has kind of evolved, because like you said, you started off with 5K, bootstrapped it. You obviously found your manufacturer, did the whole thing. You created what, like, I think you made like 500, you guys made like 500 items, and then sold out basically in 24 hours.
Yeah,
Which is insane. And
it was insane.
I can only imagine seeing that, like the ticker of all the sales going and going, what the, and it just like kind of flowing through. I know a lot of that has to do with the fact of how you guys marketed it. Obviously the name and all that stuff is amazing, but you guys put some money and some time into the idea of the social media marketing and the ads and things like that. I want you to be able to kind of, if you can kind of give, I don't know, like a rudimentary concept or talk about this, because I think I'll be honest with you, Adam, like I've been doing my brand for a long time, and I could tell you right off the bat, one of the things that I've fallen flat, what I suck at, is I have not really spent the money and time and investment into Facebook marketing ads, and or Instagram ads and things like that. Things that I should, because I know that my brand would blow up because of it. So I definitely want to kind of get an idea of at least somewhat of an inkling of what maybe you could help me and maybe help others on kind of how that thought process went to, and then what do you, maybe some advice you may give for someone starting out, because obviously when you're bootstrapped, you don't have a lot of money to spend on kind of shooting blank sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, no doubt, and happy to kind of unpack that a bit. I think the one thing before I dive into exactly, you know, kind of what we did is, the most important thing you can ask yourself is like, what is going to get someone's, you know, attention? What's going to get them to stop in the feed, right? And for us, luckily, like the name of the product is, a very, attention grabbing. So, ball wash, and we decided, in that creative that we initially tested, to make sure like it was just a black bottle on a white background, like, because the name is what was going to grab people's attention. So we made sure that was like kind of close to the front of the image, and there was nothing distracting from it, right? So as a brand, like, you need to be, thinking through, and admittedly, this has gotten harder and harder, because 4 years ago when I launched it, Facebook was definitely a thing, but it's way more of a thing now. I mean, there's just so many more brands and products. It's not a secret It's just like kind of a given. You need to be on Facebook. So it's even more and more important now that you spend the time. It's like, would I stop on this ad? And what questions would I have if I did stop on it? And answer those two questions before you kind of start spending a bunch of money, right? Because if that part isn't right, none of it's going to work, right? So again, inherently in our brand, it is very ballsy and, gets people's attention. But from there, the thing that we did out of the gate was test different audiences. Okay, so we had initially set up a campaign, and we broke it into 4 different ad sets. So each ad set is going after a different, group, if you will. So we actually had 3 groups going after men. I think they varied in age for each ad set and different interests. And then we had a 4th ad set that was just going towards females. And this was right around, Christmas. But I wasn't really thinking about females as the target market for ball wash. I mean, I came to find out later on, naively, that females do purchase the majority of personal care products in their household. But I've always just bought my own, so I never really had that experience. But like, again, just kind of a great, happenstance that unfolded. But I think it all came down to just testing some assumptions that maybe you weren't that adamant about, right? It's just like that seems obvious now to test like the women's segment, but it was kind of a throwaway for me at the moment. And that ad set, lo and behold, was just like crushed the other 3 ad sets. It was like, I think the ROAS on that, like, which is your return on ad spend. So for every dollar you put in, what you get back, it was like a 10 to 1, right? Wow. Like for every buck I put in, I was getting $10 back, where the other ones were like a 4 to 1. And that's still great, but it was just like, holy, like this is where we got to go. Yeah. And, so we like immediately leaned into that, and we did sell, the 500 units basically in 24 to 48 hours, like right over like Black Friday. And then we use that for the rest of holiday. So the other part of this is I reached out to our manufacturer and I said, all right, good and bad problem. We're sold out, but do we have time to make more? And like, luckily they made us 15,000 units and we sold out of all of those before Christmas. But if it wasn't for really, doing that, what seems like obvious test now, it maybe the business wouldn't have, I wouldn't have gotten the signal early on. Yeah. And we wouldn't have been as profitable, and who knows how that domino goes. So again, it's testing, testing your obvious assumptions, but throwing a few different ones out there, some wild cards and smaller budget may always pay off.
I like that.
Or may pay off. Yeah.
No, I totally get that. And then what was your progression going from the 2 products going and selling? Because I mean, you guys have obviously been now in business for a few years now, so you're up to 14 items. Everything from like the B2 trimmers, like your newest thing that you guys have. So what was your progression like once you went? Is it one of those where like every 6 months you're like, all right, now we're going to start coming up with new products and building up and just kind of going every 6 months or so? Or did you guys have like, what was your thought process on how you were going from there and building your brand?
Yeah. So at first we took it really slow. So the first full year in business, that we added 1 other product. So that was sack spray. And the huge unlock for us was to put those 3 products into a kit. And then we marketed it as like, your below the belt kit. And that just absolutely crushed it. And we did $3.5 million in our first year of business. And I think a lot of brands, would be like, oh man, we got to like get a bunch of more products out there because it's exciting and you're having all this traction. It's like, we need to get more out there. And for us, we're like, we wanted to make it kind of dead simple for when somebody landed on our site. It's like, here's 3 things. They're about balls. They do different, one's a deodorizer, one's a cologne, and one's just a wash. And it's like very simple. It's easy for somebody to like make a buying decision. They're not like looking through a ton of different products and getting confused or whatever and spinning off. So, and it also made it really easy for us just to tell the brand story, in general, and kind of devote money just to creating assets for 3 products. Like the more SKUs you add, again, the more content you need to make, and the more just money it takes to do all of these things. So we remained very narrowly focused for that first year, and even into the second year, we started to add a few other products. We added Ball Guard, which is a lotion. It's basically a below the belt deodorant that replaces guys that have used like talcum powder
Mm-hmm.
for like sweat and odor and irritation with a lotion that dries as a powder. And that became a hit. But around that time too, that's actually our best-selling product to date. But around that time, we started to ask the question of, could we start to become a more well-rounded men's personal care brand? Like, can we get you in with the balls? And the kind of what we always said was like, if you trust us with your balls,
Yeah.
could you trust us with the rest of your body?
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, our hypothesis was yes. So then we started to branch into a few other products like our shampoos and conditioner, and from then moved into deodorant, face wash, face lotion. But this is over the course of 4 years. But I think it's really important early on to just remain kind of focused, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot easier to manage Facebook ad spend when you only have three products. It's a lot easier to manage content. It's a lot easier for customers to understand who you are. At least that's the way that I've seen it work for us. And I don't know. I think simple is good, at least
No,
in the beginning.
I think sometimes those are the, be consistent and simple. I think that's kind of the big areas. And I think that what's been interesting is as you guys have grown, you guys have noticed, or I've seen different forms of streams of income. I've noticed like you have so obviously you have online, you're on Amazon, you have subscription, you have the box sets, which obviously are very, very fun. Like for Valentine's Day, you have like I'm Nuts About You, and things like that, which is a great little set. And it's perfect because you're right. It's like a great gift to give. But you guys also have like a subscription, and then you guys also are in retailers, right? So, I mean, it's kind of like you've kind of realized, I guess, as you started, you kind of built that infrastructure. You're like, okay, now I'm ready to start kind of like putting myself out there in different places to kind of grow this thing a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. We started only D2C, right? Again, we
Mhm.
started very narrow. We're like, let's focus on one thing at a time and then get that, kind of humming along pretty good before we start adding on. I mean, we only added Amazon as a channel the last year,
Mhm.
right? Like we want to just be very focused on like owning the customer's, email address and making it very easy to like remarket to them and provide them this really cool branded experience that we could do on our website where we couldn't do on Amazon. And maybe we were a little bit too protective early on, and how quickly we went over to Amazon because we were always worried about like cannibalization.
Yeah.
People going on Amazon, you have lower margins and you lose
Mhm.
that customer data.
Yeah.
But it's worked pretty well to kind of just take things in stride, do some tests. You mentioned retail. We didn't immediately start going out to retail. We had retailers, smaller barbershops, boutiques, gift stores reaching out to us, asking us to carry it. And, we kind of tested the water with them. We learned, kind of what works, what doesn't. And then we've started to scale up to, larger stores. So it's kind of like that, crawl, walk, run approach for us. And we're a small team. So
How
we've
much
always just
you
done
have
that.
like five, right? You have like five folks. You have like a from what I've seen, right?
Yeah, there's four of us. So myself and Brock, who's he's the co-founder and handles a lot of the main operations of the business. And then one of my best friends of 25 years, Eric, he handles finance. And then we've got another great friend. So it's basically four buddies just working on this company together. And he does a bunch of content for us. And then my sister helps with social media. I'm
Mhm.
not social media with customer service.
Yeah.
So
And
small and mighty.
hey, man, that I absolutely love it. I mean, I think it's really impressive what you guys have done. One of the things that I find, by the way, and I was kind of curious, like how you guys, how important is your email marketing? Because I've purchased from you, so I chuckle a
Well,
lot
thank
when I
you.
see the different ads and the different emails that I get from you guys. Obviously, the wonderful thing about your product is that once you're done, it's you hopefully have a repeat customer constantly and hopefully adding new things and new products. So how important is it? Where at what point? I guess really my question really will kind of lead to is at what point is it, what have you noticed as email fatigue? You know what I mean? Like when you get too many emails, like if anyone's ever gotten like an Old Navy one where it's like every day you get an Old Navy somehow always has a sale. What have you learned? What have you learned in that of like how, like, kind of what you've noticed from your own customers of like the constant repetition or times that they're getting and receiving emails?
Yeah, I mean, the first part of your question, email is just immensely important to the brand and keeping top of mind with customers and, letting them know about new products and sales. If we do blog posts, we talk about the, content around why do balls stink and things like that. So email is just, a huge lever still for any brand. And something that we've actually continued to do more and more of, to your point of like burning out your customers and your email list. Like I was always very sensitive to that early on. So I didn't want to send too many emails.
Mm-hmm.
And then we started working with this amazing email agency, and they're like, you guys aren't doing enough. Like there's definitely like more that you can push. Like people, some people are going to get upset and they're going to, unsubscribe potentially, but the majority of people like those reminders, and they're not mad about them because they typically now go into a social folder in their Gmail or whatever, and it's like they're there, and if not, they archive it. So yeah, you don't want to be hitting people over the head daily, but we kind of aim for about 3 emails a week, and we'll scale that up or down, just kind of depending on what we have going on. Around holidays, we're sending emails, I'd say 5 days a week, just because Christmas and Valentine's Day are just such huge moments for us.
Yeah.
In the summer, it'll probably be 3. Something we're talking about more is just how do you email people when you don't, let's say we're not releasing new products all the time, or we don't have sales all the time, right? Yeah. So like, how do you keep that engaging, right? So it's like, maybe it's focusing on certain attributes of that product that makes sense for that time of year. Like Ball Guard, it's like sweat season is here. It's like, this is what's going to help you solve this thing that's happening, now. So you're always looking for like, what's the story you can tell for kind of like what the time of year or moment is. And then outside of that, something that we haven't done a great job of, but something that I want to do more of is just, like I said, more informational posts around, personal care. Like, why do you need a face wash? Do I need to, wash my face? Like, do guys do this? What's the, why put lotion on? All of these things that I think as guys, maybe have thought of, but maybe never looked into. And I think our brand has the unique ability to be fun in the way that we approach these normally boring kind of conversations and topics. So that's something that I think, we're excited to continue to explore, is not just always hitting people over the head with sales, but like, can you provide them value?
Yeah.
And content outside of just trying to always push sales.
I think that, and that's something that I try to balance, because you never want to be the one who's like, buy, but at the same time, you want to be able to provide some fun things to be able to kind of, people find a little bit more about the brand or about itself. Like I try to do a little bit of sandwich facts, and I'll do sandwich jokes, and I'll do, because I have like a my mascot is a puppet. So I basically use him to do the horrible sandwich puns, and things like that. So I try to mix it up, just because I never want to be the guy that just says, hey, buy my stuff. But at the same time, obviously I want you to think about sandwiches and think about me. So I totally get that. When it comes to that, what advice would you give? I mean, obviously what advice would you give someone starting out or wanting to start out, and, and basically kind of is just afraid to pull the trigger?
I mean, it's so cliche, but like, just pull the trigger. Like, honestly, I almost didn't. Like, I was very close, over those 6 months when I'm calling all those, manufacturers, and it's not working. And then you start second guessing yourself, and it's like, all right, well, maybe some of the things you had a ton of conviction on slowly start to, drip away. And then you finally get that person on the phone, and it's like, all right, cool. Like, this could maybe work. But then you spend the next 6 months doing 100 different iterations of the product. And then again, the doubt starts to creep into your mind. Like, can we actually make something that's so, differentiated and, is going to stand up, that you're going to be proud of? Luckily, like the next step, when we finally got them and we put it up, like we saw a lot of success, like immediately. But, there's a lot of brands where that doesn't happen. But like, the entrepreneurial journey is not for the, the faint of heart, but like the people that continue to push through, it's always like right on the other side of the hill. You never know what could have been. And, there were several times where I almost didn't do it. I was actually at a startup that got acquired by Google And it was like, oh man, like I'm gonna work at Google. Like this is the dream. Like, what am I doing with this ball wash company? Like, should I even do this anymore? And like for a while, like, I really didn't. Like, and I would just, I really thought about not doing it. And thankfully, I just continue to push. And I think one of my favorite days during this entrepreneurial journey was going to my, managers at Google and say, hey guys, I'm leaving. And they're, why? What's going on? I'm like, well, I've got this, ballsy company and it's crushing it. And I got to take this, full time and pursue that. And they were just like, jaws open, like, wait, you're leaving Google for like balls? Then I told them the numbers and they were like, get out of here now. Like, go do that. You're an idiot.
So that's a great question. And I'm glad you brought that up. Like, because I have some people that sometimes ask me, they're like, well, what's it going to take? Because I have a full-time job, and they're like, what's it going to take for you to go full-time with Deli Fresh Threads? And I'm like, well, I'm like, I got to get to a point where I'm like, there's a certain like number or certain threshold where I'm like, I have a family, I have a house, I have all these things you got to deal with, right? Which is the same thing that you had to deal with. You probably had to have that uncomfortable conversation with your wife, about like, hey, what do you think? And obviously the bread's in, it's kind of like one of those things where, at one point, I mean, it's kind of cool because you were basically at a point where I think you were just like, I can't keep up with this. I gotta basically, like, I can't burn myself, both sides of the candle type of thing.
Yeah. Everyone has that number, right? And I am not that, risky of a person, even though the brand is called Ballsy. And so, we had a substantial amount of sales, and I knew in my heart it was time, but, I'm looking at my 4-year-old daughter at the time and, my wife, and I'm working at Google, and it's like, this is very safe and secure and options are great and benefits are awesome. And I'm like, maybe I just continue running this on the side and like, is like a little, cash business on the side and a lifestyle brand. And I had the conversation with my wife, and she literally just like bitch slapped me. And she's like, you're an idiot. Shut up and let's do this thing. And no matter what happens, like you'll always be able to go back and do those things. So like, I'm really lucky. I can't say that I'm like that entrepreneur that just like YOLO, like I'm going for it. And maybe if I was, in my early 20s, that could have worked. But, as, I was 35 at the time, like I needed that. And luckily I had the support system and like, my wife just being like, let's do this thing. And we never looked back. And, here we are today. We actually, and I don't think you know this, but we sold I'm still working on the business, but I sold the business in August of last year.
You did?
So I did. So I'm there still working on it, but I am no longer like the owner of the businesses, which is weird to say out loud.
So wait, hold on. I definitely did not know this.
Yeah, I mean,
in all my research,
I haven't really made it a thing.
So let me ask you this then. So now that happened, and obviously I'm assuming you made it was very, very, very good for you and your family. What happens next? Like, does the entrepreneurial spirit still stay in your head where like I have the next idea that I want to do? Or are you like now kind of like, let me see what like when you made that decision, was that part of it? Or you're like, no, this is too good of an opportunity. I'm willing to cash out and then basically then figure out what my next step is going to be.
Yeah. I mean, I've always been singularly focused on Ballsy. Like, as 4 people running this company, it is, a complete beast to run. So I've never been, I wasn't cooking on other ideas when this kind of opportunity came up. So the opportunity came up, and we've had several people kind of approach, the brand over the years as we've scaled, and this one, made a lot of sense. So we finally decided, to do it. One, I have to admit, like, it was financially great for, myself and our partners. And 2, we were excited about the company that bought us and where we thought they could, scale it to, right? Yeah. We were kind of at this point where it's like, well, we can't be 4 guys running this company forever. So we're going to either have to like hire a bunch of people, maybe raise, we never raised money, it was always bootstrapped the whole way through. But it was like, to get that to that next level, it kind of was like, we might need to start looking at this, or, do we sell it to somebody that's going to do that for us, and we can, take our chips off the table and start working on the next idea. So that's kind of what, the thought process was through, and we ultimately obviously decided to sell. But yeah, now, I'm on a 6-month retainer where next month is the last month. And, I can't say, it hasn't even hit me yet. It's scary. It's just like, man, it's like one day in the very near future, I'm not going to need to I'm not going to be focusing on this, which is terrifying. So yeah, trying to figure out exactly what's next. What I'm trying to tell myself is not to rush it. I have had some other friends that have sold businesses, and like they jump immediately into the next thing. And I'm kind of like all or none, right? And I don't want to like just jump immediately to the next thing and be like, man, like I should have took a little bit of time off. So I think the plan now is to, it's February, to take through the summer off, enjoy some much needed time with my family. Again, it was been amazingly supportive. And then, work on the next venture.
That's awesome, man. That's like, I mean, that's phenomenal to be able to go that route. And I think that's, I think that's kind of what everyone wants, to be able to kind of take it and build something from the scratch, and then all of a sudden develop it to the point of like, kind of like you hit puberty, you could say. And then now you're taking it, letting someone else take it to, to take it to the next level. That's congratulations, man. That's really awesome.
Yeah, it's exciting and terrifying all at once. It's like, it's this weird thing where like you've grown, like you said, you've grown the little baby up with your teenager, and like Ballsy is me, right? Like I've written the copy, designed literally it is me as a brand. So it's like weird to like just be like, here's my kid, like take him, like I've sold him off to you, and like just to see where it's going to go. But it's also exciting to see like what other people are going to do with it and the way that they look at it. So
it'd be a different set of eyes, different perspective. It's always amazing when you get someone else from a different set, like, coming from a different angle, how they may take it. So that's that's definitely hard when it comes to that. I definitely what lessons or advice has helped you or helped someone like you on your journey, like as you've gone? Because obviously I know you've probably had some moments where you've stumbled along the way. Has there ever been is there a certain like a phrase or mantra or maybe advice you've gotten that's kind of helped you through that?
I can't say there's been a certain, phrase or anything like that. What I'd say is surrounding yourself with people that support you and believe in the vision is just paramount to everything else. Because like when COVID started, and it's like, man, like you start thinking about like what's going to happen to this business, right? Like you're freaking out. And it's like, if you don't have somebody that like you can sincerely lean on and talk through, like you could just, the entrepreneur journey is a very lonely one if you're not surrounded by like great people. So whether it's a partner in the business or just somebody that you can like, a mentor or somebody that you can trust, like I think it's just, or your significant other rather, it's incredibly powerful and helpful to have those people, at the peaks and and then more importantly at the valleys. So luckily, I like I said, I've built this brand with my best friends and with my wife. Like my wife is like kind of the silent Ballsy, consultant on the side. Like she's just been there for me and always gave that female perspective and always, supported me. So I would say find the people that love and care about you and can support you and will be there for you no matter what. And that's everything else, mantras and slogans, are great, but at the end of the day, that's what it is for me.
Out of curiosity, because you brought up the word mentor, did you have, because obviously you've never done personal health, grooming or men's care or whatnot. Did you reach out to any other mentors or folks that maybe had a little bit more understanding in the industry to kind of help you guys along the way?
Not really in personal care. I mean, I joined and been a part of some, just e-commerce, Slack groups and channels and things like that. But I guess my background, outside of I Am the Trend and all of that was in e-commerce directly. So
Yeah.
luckily, it through several startups, and then also Brock, who is, my main co-founder, we worked together at an e-commerce startup for about 3 years. That was Store Envy.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at him as somebody that just makes me better. So it always, us two together, he was kind of my mentor and I think I was his. So it was just like the perfect, partnership. So I did not, but I know that is helpful when you don't have that person as kind of your partner.
Yeah. And I was just kind of curious because of the fact that you were in an industry that wasn't, like it's a competitive industry. And so I was kind of curious if if you seeked out or anything like that. So that's why I was always curious on that, which is even more amazing. The fact that you guys, it kind of does kind of go to show that you create a good product, and at the same time can market it. Then obviously then you can do quite a bit of wonderful things like you guys have done. So that's props to you guys, man. I'm
Thank
super
you.
excited for you guys.
I appreciate that.
How can people purchase, support, follow, and check out Ballsy or ballwash.com? Where else can they follow you and interact with you guys?
Yeah, so the website is, as you mentioned, either ballwash.com or ballsybrand.com. They both go to the same place. We are on Instagram and Facebook and all those fun platforms at Ballwash. My email personally, if anyone wants to reach out, is adam@ballsybrand.com. Always happy to connect.
Awesome, man. Well, Adam, super excited for everything. I thank you so much for taking the opportunity to chat with me and talk about your brand and your journey. I think it's really is inspiring what you've done and what you've created. So I definitely thank you so much for that.
No, and I thank you, man. And you were honestly, and Napes, we're just talking right now, like one of my favorite interviews on the Trend, just because like the passion and the love and like the understanding of brand that you have is. I saw a lot of clothing brands.
I know you did.
Hundreds, if not more. And I think what you immediately got, and which I think is just so immensely important, is like what does the brand stand for, and is it authentic to that person? Like, for me, Ballsy is me. Like, it's the brand that I wanted to exist. So it wasn't me forcing something. And for you, it's very obvious your passion for sandwiches and Deli Fresh is you. And I think those are always, Johnny Cupcakes, like that's him. Like, Jeff of Ugmug, like that is him. So it's like it's the people that are making brands that resonate so much with themselves. And it might be in something that you're not thinking about. Like personal care is not something that I had any expertise in, but I made the brand in that product that I am. So it wasn't me trying to force something. And I think that's, incredibly important because it keeps you pushing and, past the good times and the bad.
Amen, man. Amen. No, that's the perfect way to close it. I totally agree. And I appreciate the compliment. It does mean a lot to me that you, those kind words and yeah, it's something I'm obsessed with. I'm obsessed with my brand and I love it. And so it means a lot that, after all these years, you still know who I am and my brand and I definitely appreciate that. Well, that's our show for today. So thank you so much to Adam Hendel for being on the show and having lunch with me. Definitely make sure to check out Ballsy, ballwash.com, ballsybrand.com, either one of those. Definitely give them a follow. They amazing marketing, as well as also they're very good products. I know because I use it and I can definitely attest to it. That's one of the other reasons why I wanted to have them on. If you enjoyed the show, definitely make sure to subscribe. Make sure to check out the new Facebook group, Lunch with Biggie Podcast on Facebook. If you want, you can always support me. Check out my brand, Deli Fresh Threads. Definitely do some shopping. Tell your friends. Thank you. Until next time, keep eating sandwiches and follow your passion.